Hello, guys and gals, and this is part 20 of our reading of Leaves of Gold. And Leaves of Gold is find it here, an anthology of prayers, memorable phrases, inspirational verse, and prose from the best authors of the world, both ancient and modern, edited by Clyde Francis Lytle. We're going to go over the copyright information, which just happens to be right here. Reserved edition, 12th printing, 1964, copyright 1938 by Evan S. Coslet. Let's see, revised 1948 by Donald G. Remley, and copyright 1948 by A.C. and D.G. Remley. It was published by the Coslet Publishing Company out of Williamsport, Pennsylvania, and printed in the United States of America. Now, we are going to read chapter 20, which is about nature. So let's get that underway. I'm pretty sure that, it's like 3 pages, so it's not very long, 4 pages. So anyway, God's thoughts. The mountains are God's thoughts piled up. The ocean is God's thoughts spread out. The flowers are God's thoughts in bloom. The dewdrops are God's thoughts in pearls. That is by Sam Jones. On every rose, I see his blood upon the rose, and in the stars, the glory of his eyes. His body gleams amid eternal snows. His tears fall from the skies. I see his face in every flower. The thunder and the surging of the birds are but his voice, engraven by his power. Rocks are his written words. All pathways by his feet are worn. His strong heart stirs the ever-beating sea. His crown of thorns is twined with every thorn. His cross is every tree. That is by Joseph Mary Plunkett. Next, we have flowers. I do not believe a child brought up under my ministry in this church will ever see flowers till he dies without having some thought of religion, of the sanctuary, and of the inspiration of flowers. So flowers at our service have a meaning. They are not in any special way a symbolization. They simply bring things common into higher relations on a principle of association, and having them on the platform, besides affording pleasure to a certain extent, interprets a part of my idea of the Christian ministry. That is by Beecher. Next, we have commonplace. A commonplace life, we say, and we sigh. But why should we sigh as we say? The commonplace sun is the commonplace sky. The commonplace sun in the commonplace sky makes up the commonplace day. The moon and the stars are commonplace things, and the flower that blooms, and the birds that sing. But dark were the world, and sad our lot if flowers failed and the sun shone not. And God, who studied each separate soil out of commonplace lives, makes his beautiful whole. Next, that's by Susan Coolidge, from A Few More Verses by Susan Coolidge, by permission of Lytle, Brown and Company Publishers. Next, we have A Ballad of Trees and the Master. Into the woods my master went, clean forspent. Into the woods my master came, forspent with love and shame, but the olives, they were not blind to him. The little gray leaves were kind to him. The thorn tree had a mind to him when into the woods he came. Out of the woods my master went, and he was well content. Out of the woods my master came, content with death and shame. When death and shame would woo him last, from under the trees they drew him last. 'Twas on a tree they slew him last, when out of the woods he came. That is by Sidney Lanier. Let's see. By permission of Charles Scribner's Sons Publishers. Next we have Teachers. The eye, it cannot choose but see. We cannot bid the ear be still. Our bodies feel, where'er they be, against and with our will. Nor less I deem that there are powers which of themselves our minds impress, that we can feed this mind of ours in a wise passiveness. One impulse from a vernal wood may teach you more of man, of moral evil and of good, than all the sages can. That is by William Wordsworth. Next we have transcendent. Dear heart, perhaps you cannot find God's hand or see his face through some hour of despair. Do not be grieved. Go seek the good, clean hand, and you will find him there. He is a part of every wind that sweeps across the furrows down their upturned length. Breathe deeply of it. Here is where God keeps stored healing and stored strength. Wander a while down some still wooded way, stoop to the lichen, dig through the mossy sod, stir in the leaf mold and the feathery spray of a fern can show you God. You can touch him as you touch the bark of a tree. You can hear his voice in the voice of the singing birds. Dear God, may we listen. God, may we look and see thy face and hear thy words. Next we have man. Man was put last because he was worthiest. The soul was inspired last because yet more noble. No air, no earth, no water was here used to give help to this work. Thou that breathest upon man and gavest him the Holy Spirit, didst also breathe upon the body and gavest it a living spirit. We are beholden to nothing but thee for our soul. Our flesh is from flesh. Our spirit is from the God of spirits. That is by Joseph Hall. The birth of the flowers. God spoke, and from the arid scene sprang rich and verdant bowers. Till all the earth was soft with green, he smiled, and there were flowers. That is by Mary McNeil Fenolus. Out in the field with God. The little cares that fretted me, I lost them yesterday, among the fields above the sea, among the winds that play, among the lowing of the herds and the rustling of the trees, among the singing of the birds and the humming of the bees. The foolish fears of what might happen, I cast them all away, among the clover-scented grass, among the new-mown hay, among the husking of the corn, where drowsy poppies nod, where ill thoughts die and good are born, out in the fields with God. That is by Louise Imogen Guiney. Next we have reality. Nature forever puts a premium on reality. What is done for effect is seen to be done for effect. What is done for love is felt to be done for love. Next we have be still with God. To be idle sometimes is the part of wisdom. It is the needful rest and relaxation when Christ invited his disciples to share with him when they were overstrained and worn out with labor. The best way to enjoy it is to get away from the crowd into some quiet place where the heart can be still with God in the open air. It is most sweet when it is shared by true friends. Such idleness may be very fruitful in it reaps the harvest of a quiet eye that broods and sleeps on his own heart. Next we have overtones. I heard a bird at break of day sing from the autumn trees a song so mystical and calm, so full of certainties. No man, I think, could listen long except upon his knees, yet this was but a simple bird alone among dead trees. That is by William Alexander Percy. Next we have Together. Lyman Abbott says, I pluck an acorn and hold it in my ear, and this is what it says to me. By and by the birds will come and nest in me. But by and by I will furnish shade for the cattle. By and by I will provide warmth for the home. By and by I will shelter from the storm to those who have gone under the roof. By and by I will be the strong ribs of a great vessel, and the tempest will beat against me in vain. Will I carry men across the Atlantic? O foolish little acorn, wilt thou be all this? I asked. And the acorn answers, Yes, God and I. Next we have the gates. The man who can really, in living union of the mind and heart, converse with God through nature, finds in the material forms around him a source of power and happiness inexhaustible and like the life of angels. The highest life and glory of man is to be alive unto God, and when this grandeur of sensibility to him and this power of communion with him is carried as the habit of the soul into the forms of nature, then the walls of our world are as the gates of heaven. That is by G.B. Cheever. Next we have marvel. The ignorant man marvels at the exceptional, the wise man marvels at the common. The greatest wonder of all is the regularity of nature. That is by G.D. Boardman. Next we have storehouse. A man finds in the production of nature an inexhaustible stock of material on which he can employ himself without any temptation to envy or malevolence, and has always a certain prospect of discovering new reasons for adoring the sovereign author of the universe. That is by Johnson. Next we have panacea. If it were happy if we studied nature more in natural things, and acted according to nature, whose rules are few, plain, and more reasonable. That is by Penn. Next we have wellspring. Nature is the armory of genius. Cities serve it poorly. Books and colleges are at second hand. The eye craves the spectacle of the horizon, of mountain, ocean, river, and plain. The clouds and stars, actual contact with the elements, sympathy with the seasons as they rise and roll. That is by A.B. Alcott. Next we have the laws of nature are just but terrible. They are there is no weak mercy in them, cause the consequences are inseparable and inevitable. The elements have no forbearance. The fire burns, the water drowns, the air consumes, the earth buries, and perhaps it would be well for our race if the punishment of crimes against the law of man were as inevitable as the punishment of crimes against the laws of nature. Were man and unerring in his judgment as nature. That's by Longfellow. Sympathy with nature is a part of a good man's religion. That is by F. H. Hedge. Next we have nature. The day before April, alone, I walked I walked to the woods and sat on a stone. I sat on a broad stone and sang to the birds. The tune was God's making, but I made the words. That is by Mary Carolyn Davies. Next we have nature and wisdom always say the same. That is by Juvenal. Next we have the best pedagogue. Nature is man's teacher. She unfolds her treasures to his search, unseals his eye, illumes his mind, and purifies his heart. And influence breathes from all the sights and sounds of her existence. That is by Street. Next we have even the least. Nature hath nothing made so base, but can read some instruction to the wisest man. That is by C. Allen. Next we have nature is commanded by obeying her. That is by Bacon. Cloak. Nature is the one, the time vesture of God that reveals him to the wise and hides him from the foolish. That is by Carlyle. All sunshine makes the desert. That is an Arabian proverb. Next we have prosecutor. There is no witness so terrible, no accuser so powerful as conscience which dwells within us. That is by Sophocles. Next we have ignorance and faith. Indwelling on divine mysteries, keep thy heart humble, thy thoughts reverent, thy soul holy. Let not philosophy be ashamed to be confuted, nor logic to be confounded, nor reason to be surpassed. What thou canst not prove, approve. What thou canst not comprehend, believe. What thou canst believe, admire, and love, and obey. So shall thy ignorance be satisfied in thy faith, and thy doubt be swallowed up in thy reverence, and thy faith be as influential as sight. Put out thine own candle, and then shalt thou see clearly the Sun of Righteousness. That is by Jeremy Taylor. Next we have study nature as the countenance of God. That is by Kingsley. Next we have nature is but a name for an effect whose cause is God. And lastly we have look through nature up to nature's God. That is by Pope. But I'm not sure which Pope. That takes us to number 21, which is opportunity. And we will pick that up at a later date. We've been reading from Leaves of Gold, and specifically chapter 20, the one on nature. If you like this content, okay, wait, first of all, this book is edited by Clyde Francis Lytle. And if you like this content, make sure you like and subscribe, ring the bell so you know when I upload. Also, if you want to support me in any way, if you want to join the Discord server, all the information will be in the description below. And as always, thanks for watching, everyone, and have a great day.